Hello, everyone. This is Doug Wilkerson with Central Christian Center here in Joplin, Missouri, and Saturday Night Live Life Recovery Ministry also here at the church. Welcome to another uh, live with an encouraging word with Doug. Anyway, I've been off for a couple of weeks and had some things needed to take care of, and so I'm back. Here I am. Here we go. My topic today is 3 habits that will make you mentally strong. How many of us want to be mentally strong? Mentally, emotionally strong. That's what we'll be talking about today. Uh, I have like 8 pages of notes. So I'm gonna have to. I've tried to cut them down. I'm gonna sift as I go, and because I don't really want this to be a real long message. So I made this part one, and then I'll come back and hit some other parts of it that I didn't cover this week. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. All right. Um, uh, the uh, the 3 habits that will make you mentally strong. Part one. All you need to know is this: is that mental strength is the ability to control your thinking instead of being controlled by it. And that's really what we want to do, because our thinking can run away with us. Our mind can run away with us. Our imagination can run away with us. Our fearful thoughts or our worrying, our rumination, they all can pick us up and carry us away. And what we're talking about today is trying to give you some things to help you to be able to get a hold of that, and do what the scripture says out of Romans, is Romans 12:2, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. It's your mind. We have to engage. We have to be active on trying to take care of our thinking instead of letting our emotions run us. Yes, we are a emotional oriented being, and we have thoughts. I know for a lot of my life, I've tried to live as a thinking being that had some emotions, but really, we are designed as, believe it or not, as emotional oriented beings. That's what our heart is, even though we do have some um, neurons in our heart, brain neurons that we actually, they say that's our little brain. And so of course, then we have some in our gut also. When we have that gut instinct, we have some brain neurons there too. But anyway, we're not talking about that today, and I'm running out of time. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to control our thinking, and all we have to do is gain the skills to know when we run off track, and then we have to pull ourselves back on the track and to give ourselves guidance, because overall what we're talking about is trying to line ourselves up. We want to be congruent in what we have in our heart and what we have in our brain, and we want to line that up so that we can line up with the truth to help us to have a better life. And that's what we're talking about. So here are 3 small habits. Now there is a bunch of things that can be done, and I've got a bunch here that I can say that I won't say it all today. But here are the 3 habits that will help you to build mental strength. Okay, and the first one is, I want to give you those 3 to start off with. I'm not going to talk about them yet, but I want to give them to you. Number 1 is to be honest about how you really feel. Okay, how you really feel. Okay. Number 2 is to resist unnecessary mental mind travel. Okay, mind travel. Okay, we'll talk about that. We're either living in the past or living in the future. We'll talk more about that. Number 3 is distinguishing between our wants and our values. Values is so important. In fact, the values part of this message really resonated in me, and hopefully I can communicate some of that to you. But values, because those are those core values that are inside of us that oftentimes we violate, we sabotage, we run ourselves into bad places because we let some of our tangible wants drag us away from what we know that we truly want as far as our values. So what do we really want? So do you want to maybe work with me here a little bit and to build some mental strength, some emotional strength? Well, I'm going to start off with a scripture. I have multiple scriptures here, but I'm only going to touch on a couple of them today here. And this is out of Isaiah 26:3, and this is out of the New King James. It says, you, God, will keep them in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. We're talking about God here. If we control our thinking, if we keep our mind focused on the truth, which is God, then he said that he'll keep us in perfect peace. Perfect peace is not flawless peace, it's mature peace. That's understanding that there's hills and valleys out here, but it's that it's mature peace, okay? Because they trust in you. We're talking about God. Because the reason why he does that is because we have that trust. Doesn't mean we're flawless, but that means our intentions, okay, are directed towards trying to line up with that truth, okay, which that truth is really those core values that's inside of us. We'll talk more about that later, but I want to read the same scripture in a different translation, and this is out of the Amplified Bible, and again it's the Isaiah 26:3, and this again is the out of the Amplified. It says, you will keep in perfect and content peace the one whose mind is steadfast. This next part is in brackets. That is committed and focused on you. Again, we're talking about he'll keep those that are committed and focused on him, okay? In other words, trying to line up with the truth, okay? Just because you know it, that means you have that's not enough. You know what the truth is, but you have to integrate and practice that truth, okay? Continue with that. In both inclination and character. Inclination is basically what we are more prone to do. Now, we could be have inclinations to do wrong things, but it's really what we've worked on training. But the next part is character. That character is a little more, is deeper than just those inclinations, as I see it and as I've studied it. And those characters are those core values, those deep-seated that we know. See, because we've always known when we got off the track. We always know when we messed up. We always knew when we did stuff wrong. We didn't have to really have anybody tell us because it's inside of us. We know it. Those are some of those core values that God has put inside of us, as I understand it. Because let's finish the Amplified reading here. Because he or she trusts and takes refuge in you with hope and confidence of expectations. Got hope and confidence of expectations. In other words, we're looking and trusting and believing. We have that hope, and he's going. If by doing that, he's going to keep us in peace. That scripture right there kind of gives us an idea what the benefit of having mental strength and emotional strength is all about. Okay, because we're able to stay in the zone there, on that track, so to speak, and things work out better that way. Haven't you found that out? I'm sure you have. I'm going to touch on this scripture, and this is out of Isaiah 41:10. It says, "So do not fear, for I am with you." This is God speaking here. Do not be dismayed. This is some things that God's actually directing us in, all right, is not to be afraid. And for I am with you. He's with us. And don't be dismayed, for following on with the scripture, okay, it says, "For I am your God." Okay, he starts into making some promises here. He says, you do those things, I am your God. I'm with you, okay? I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. He made some promises. So there's some benefits, some real big benefits. So if those are the benefits, then what are the difficulties or problems if we don't? I think we all pretty much know that. So out of Ephesians, I've got down here chapter 6, verse 10 through 18, but I'm not going to do all those today. I want to start with verse 10 and go down to 14. The very first part of 14, he says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." This is out of the NIV. Put on, okay? He's telling us to put on something, to do something, engage in something, okay? Put on the whole armor of God. Well, what is that? Well, we'll talk more about that in more detail next week, but we're engaging with the spiritual clothing, if so to speak, of God. So it says, "Put on the armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes." He wants to equip us with tools here, and he's communicating as the armor of God or God's clothing to help us to deal with the enemy's schemes, the devil's schemes. Verse 12 says, "For our struggles," that means we are going to have struggles. It is not, we're not going to have a life without struggles. It's not pain-free. It's not difficult-free. We're going to have struggles. It says, "For your struggles is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against powers of this dark world." Okay, so there's things out there that work against us. Okay, that's the reason why it's so important to put on this armor, okay, that we're talking about here. "And against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." This heavenly realms is the sphere where spiritual activity takes place, and that's not necessarily just in the natural, but that's everywhere. Okay, so we are supposed to come against those forces, and we human folks need God's help to do that. And some of the help to engage with those tools is to have some mental strength, and that's what we're talking about: mental and emotional strength or resiliency. Okay. One of the many benefits of becoming more mentally strong is that it is one of the best ways to improve how you feel emotionally. So to gain this emotional strength or mental strength, that means you improve how you feel emotionally. Does that make sense? The only way to lower your anxiety, okay, we're talking about anxiety here, is in the long term, to learn how to control your mental patterns of worry. Okay, need to control our mental patterns of worry. You'll only be able to get a handle on your anger issues. Okay, how many of you have anger issues? Okay, when you learn to control your mental patterns of rumination, okay, worry, thinking, negative thinking, okay, all right. And, I said here a few weeks ago that worrying is a form of negative praying, okay? Uh, and so when you're ruminating or worrying, you're meditating or praying for that you're worrying about. Not that it gets better, but it's like you're bringing it closer to you. So let's go on. It's hard to break the cycle of low self-esteem without learning how to manage your mental patterns. We have to learn that. And the patterns of self-criticism. In other words, if you want to be emotionally resilient, you must train yourself to be mentally strong. What does that mean, emotional resilient? Being able to stand up and take on the fiery darts of the wicked, which we'll talk more about next week. So being able to take the hits and keep on going, all right? And let's see. And like any kind of training, building emotional strength requiring a commitment of good habits. We have to choose to keep doing the next right thing or making healthy choices, as I say, following the truth, because the truth makes us or sets us free. And doing those things over and over, practicing them over time to create those more permanent ways of thinking, or what we call habits. There are 3 small habits, we're talking about habits here, that will slowly but surely improve your mental strength and your emotional resilience. And those are the 3 I've already given you. And the first one is be honest about how you feel emotionally. Be honest about how you feel emotionally. This habit is so simple that it can be easily missed, okay? Because oftentimes we learn a pattern of denying our emotions and of hiding our emotions and avoiding our emotions and bottling up our emotions that we miss this one about being honest about our emotions. Are you honest about your emotions? You say, well, I'm honest about my emotions. I know exactly how I feel. Oh, really? Really? Maybe when someone asks you how you feel, how you feeling today? Oh, everything's great. I'm blessed. I'm highly favored. I'm great. And you just keep on going. But you think, well, but that's not really the way it is. I'm not really telling the truth here. Now, you might also say, well, I'm at work. It's not really appropriate to talk about all kinds of personal things, but we're talking about trying for you to get in touch with the emotions, because see, you can't there's a statement out that says you need to be aware of it. You got to be able to name it to be able to tame it. Okay, you have to be able to address it. If you don't allow yourself to process what's going on, then and if you're not really aware of your feelings, like what are you feeling? Have you asked yourself? Did you take a few minutes this morning and you're feeling this way? Did you ask yourself, well, what am I feeling? What am I thinking about what I'm feeling? What am I really, really feeling? I remember doing this in my early years, trying to get a hold of my what I'm feeling, because your feelings affect your behavior. Because I don't like what I'm doing, so what am I feeling to cause those behaviors? And feelings oftentimes come in clusters like grapes, and but the bunch is, you sometimes have to kind of go through and figure out what the entire bunch means. And usually the bottom line is it's fear. Okay. And fear of what is a good question to ask. And so you need to get clarity on and be honest with yourself about what's going on, because see, you can't address it if you keep yourself in the dark. That's what this is all about here. So we, well, you say, well, I hurt. Well, what kind of hurt do you have? Is it disappointment? Is it regret? Is it shame? Are you being, you feel like somebody shamed you, or you feel ashamed? And to identify your emotions, then you're able then to address your emotions. How to deal with it. Again, you have to be able to name it, to tame it. Even though you may know intellectually that you're feeling, that you feel okay, I can function, I can make it, right? But by avoiding your feelings, listen, this is an important part to this step, number one here. You are teaching your brain that feelings are bad and they're dangerous. And so you keep avoiding them, you keep dodging them, and your brain learns that, well, we just need to keep, they're dangerous, so we need to avoid them. So we go on fight or flight or freeze on every time emotions come up, because they're bad. So, and your brain understandably would just intuitively react in a negative way. You train it because it's trying to protect you. It's trying to be your friend and protect you. And you trained it to be that way. So it's going to be difficult to retrain it. You know what I mean? So what we need to do is we need to teach our brain that even though I am afraid, because that's what's going on here, afraid of what's my feelings, what I felt here, and I need to know. I want to know it. And the more that you feed that fear, you become more emotionally fragile. Okay, and you also have pain. And sometimes after you hide it enough and you avoid it enough and you turn it off intellectually, then you're in the dark and you don't know why you feel the way you feel, because then you say, why do I always feel this way? So we need to turn the light on. Luckily, you can teach your brain with new messages, okay? And that is that even though it's painful and difficult emotions, they're not dangerous, even though it seems scary. I can do this. I can manage it. Simply, I need to be honest with myself so that I can deal with reality the way that it is. And when you resolve the problems, when you take the big boulders out of the road, it's easier to drive down the highway of life. Haven't you found that out to be so? So what about taking 3 seconds to acknowledge that you have some emotional something going on here, and be honest with yourself? Yeah, what am I feeling? Why am I snappy? Why am I snarky? Why am I sarcastic? What am I avoiding here? Okay, and just look at it. Go to school on yourself so that you can learn what those feelings there, so that you can resolve them. And when you resolve them, you get stronger. That's what we're talking about: mental strength, emotional resiliency. Okay, all right. Well, number 2. Maybe I can touch on 2 before I shut this down. But number 2 is resist unnecessary mental time travel. Okay, the bottom line here, the majority of emotional suffering comes from this time travel. Either spending all your time in the past, okay, ruminating, worrying, trying to fix the past. How many times have you ever been able to fix the past? Now, you can make amends and clean up the past, but you can't fix it. Okay, what do you mean by cleaning up? I mean, you make restitution, you work through it, you change, you say, I'm sorry, you alter your behavior, recognize that I did something bad and I want it to be different. So we clean it up. We clean it up. because and that cleanup process is the ability to start the change process. Another way of saying it is growing up. Another way in recovery we're talking about is recovery, internal recovery. Okay, not just doing what's right, but being what's right. Does that make sense? So time travel is a way to that can be very, very beneficial in a lot of different aspects of life, and as far as being problem solving and thinking about solutions to difficulties out there in the future. Okay, imagining what things that need to be built, or having being an entrepreneur and seeing what could be. Okay, and or in some jobs where you're looking for problems so that the company doesn't have problems, and threat assessments and things like that. But the trouble is, sometimes when we get really good at looking at all the negative things, or always looking into the future, then sometimes we get prone to trying to use that on everything all the time. Like Abraham Maslow said, if every problem is, if you get to thinking that if our only tool is a hammer, then we think every problem is a nail, or every situation is a nail. And so what we need to do is recognize tools that work really good in some areas doesn't mean they work in every area. And so we need to we need to not look for threat assessments all the time at home. Even there are a lot of good things. Doesn't mean that everything's wrong. Okay, sure, there's some things wrong. We recognize, and when those things come up, we recognize them, and then we take appropriate, healthy steps to deal with them. Okay, so resist. Okay, resist unnecessary. All right, we're talking about unnecessary mental time travel. Okay, always living in the past. I've had people that went into marital difficulties, and one of their ways to deal with the present difficulties is to think about the one that got away, or the one that I wish I had a relationship with. I wonder where they're at, and so then they go fantasizing about the past and how good the past was. Well, if it was so good, then why didn't it work out to be the present? And besides that, you're not helping yourself any by thinking about things that are not real, because they're fantasies. Need to be in reality and work on present solutions instead of avoiding the present. That's what we're talking about. So what we need to do is we need to focus on being in the present, living in the present, and that helps us to have stability emotionally, have some resilience, and at the same time, then you're able to come up with some ideas how to navigate what's going on right now, instead of always being way out in the future, or always living back in the past. I'm going to have to conclude here. I can, I want to read two more statements before I jump out of here. I got 4 minutes. It says, as an antidote to destructive mind traveling, cultivate the ability to hold your attention in the present moment. The antidote, okay? And that is, come on back to the present. Be in the now, okay? Be here, okay? When you're in the situation, be in the situation. Be present, okay? Don't disassociate, escape to the future or the past, or just into nothingness, okay? All right? So when you stop at a traffic light, take those moments to practice mindfulness and be in the present, whether it's looking at the buildings, or listening to the music on the radio possibly, but be in the present. Be there now, and instead of rehashing the past or worrying about the future. Remember, the ability to mentally time travel is a tool. Use it mindfully, not recklessly. So we'll get to maybe I'll get to spend more time on distinguishing the difference between our wants and wants and our values, those core values, to help us to help us to recognize them better, so we get a you know hone into that target. So until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you. And may that perfect peace be on you, as we talked about in Isaiah 26:3. Focus in on that and allow that to come into your life, and let God smile on you. Until then, make healthy choices. And of course, be in church Sunday. Till next time, take care of yourself.